Okay, so the use cases we've been applied to for mobiles. We got deployed in the Middle East, Afghanistan, to protect the US Armed Forces. So where they had bases, they were sticking up aerial platforms to do wide area surveillance to actually look for people encroaching on the base, people encroaching on the patrols, people encroaching on the convoys that were coming in. So we're doing scene analysis, looking for people loitering, looking for specific types of events. And the great thing here is we actually saved lives, which it was fantastic. This drove us to the understanding of how to do video analysis from moving devices. These things go up 1.5 kilometers, so it's a long way up in the air. And it's all about understanding not just what you're seeing, but what's going on around. So we're actually fusing data. So another great term, data fusion. So we're looking at the video surveillance, but we're looking at the actual SIG intelligence of the reports. So if we saw a convoy, and we heard about a convoy, and then you get a radio notification that a convoy is coming as well, you've probably seen a convoy. And you can put that information together to make it a much stronger result. The great thing about this, though, they had very, very, very precise cameras. Really, really high accuracy cameras. But there's one rule for this type of application. Never, ever, ever give a false alert. Because the soldier said, if I'm being shot at, the last thing I want to do is look at a false alert. So we were actually augmenting the operator and saying, hey, we think you might have missed this. In one case, there was a street fight. Everybody's watching the street fight, thinking, what the hell's going on? What they weren't watching was the guys planting the bomb on the corner of the street. And we catch that because, as a computer, you're just told to look for what you're told to look for, not, oh, look, there's a fight going on. So that's another psychological problem. You know, pretty lady walks down the street, everybody watches the pretty lady, avoids the thing that's happening on the other side of the street. We have infrared cameras as well, so we were looking for things like people coming together in a group or people dispersing. One of the things we were actually asked for by Special Ops was to see children disappear, because when the children left the scene, they knew something was going to happen. But from these heights, you can't actually do that, sadly. Another great thing that we're asked to do, it was known that the locals know where the devices are buried. So if you're watching a vehicle and that vehicle deviates for some reason, it might be a local avoiding the device. So we were looking to track vehicles and understand where they deviated. Now, what I'm showing you here is the zoom factor. So the system knows the angles in the video, so it knows how big a deviation. The soldier doesn't have to train at 2 different levels. He just says, look for deviation, and we take that all into account. We then moved on to UAVs. So we're actually, from those tethered platforms, which are moving all over the shop, to actual moving drones as such. Again, very similar use case, but incredibly important. And for this one as well, I was told by an operator, and I've always said, if your human eye can't see it, the computer never will. They reckon that us watching a drone could actually see people in the woods where they couldn't because it was moving too fast, which was an interesting use case. One other thing we've been asked to do is, if you imagine you get an aeroplane and you cover it in thousands of cameras, it's called Gorgon Stay, and it runs at high altitude. It can actually take incredible video of a citywide operation. Now, the tricky thing here is not the video analysis as such, it's getting enough CPU to do that video analysis. So this was all about piping that video down into a data center and then doing a huge amount of video processing on it. So it's just another use of CCTV just scaled massively. A commercial use for this, and I mentioned a bit earlier, is here in the Niger Delta, people are tapping into the oil pipelines and pinching oil. So they fly up and down these pipelines every day trying to find out when that's happening. A, it's the loss of oil, but B, it's the actual environmental problem that's caused by it. Now, at the moment, they use helicopters, so if you've got somebody in a helicopter flying up and down, you can look at the pipe, and he's basically doing the task at the same time. But they're going to start using drones, so there's nobody looking at it. It's just going to fly up and down autonomously, and therefore, when the video comes back, somebody's got to check it, and that's exactly the task we'll be doing. A silly little thing, but good for the engineers. You know these hexcopter things, about yay big? Stick a high-def camera on it. We're now flying it autonomously, so that we've launched it and we said, track that person. So the helicopter is now using all this analysis I've talked to you about to follow a person around the field. So this is the sort of stuff that's going to come down the line. So imagine standoff police. You could actually just say, follow that car. He doesn't have to track the car anymore. An interesting observation.